Today on Amplified Whole Health.
If you're going through something, it's important to remember that it will stop at some point. And if it doesn't, then you have a whole lot more bigger problems than the ones you're worrying about.
Welcome to the Amplified Whole Health podcast, where personal and organizational health meet. I'm your host, Justin Collier, and my goal is to bring you insightful interviews with business owners and leaders from a variety of different industries. We'll be talking about employee development, leadership, company culture, and quality products and services, and how they drive success in business. Thanks for joining me, and let's get started. Thank you everyone for taking the time to listen today. Please take a moment to follow, subscribe, etc. to Facebook and all of that good stuff at Amplified Whole Health. And I'm joined in the studio by Dallas King, and he is the owner of KPLUS, which is a landscaping company, but now you've also ventured into some other business stuff around cattle. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, the cows they've been in my family for a long time.
Okay.
It's really my, if you would, passion for it. The lawn and landscape came really just out of necessity for a job. And then I originally, before I knew what I was going to do with my life, which I still don't know what I'm going to do with my life, but I was going to be an art teacher. And I always grew up on a cattle ranch, so I liked working. And then I liked making stuff cool. And then this kind of melded those two together, So that's where the lawn and landscape, I just enjoyed it when I got a job. And so we got some cows, and I'm one of 4 owners of Activate Fitness as well. So we're doing our best, getting some stuff going.
Yeah. So you've got, it sounds like 3 different businesses, but the landscape thing kind of came first. Is that right?
Yeah, that was the first one. Everyone, which I learned a lot from the company I worked with before. It's a local company. So, I worked for them for 4 or 5 years, and then just all the men in my family my whole life have owned their own business. It's not for any reason, but it's just kind of how we're built. And so just at some point I wanted to do it myself. And now it's 5 years ago. Yeah, it was 5 years ago in January. So yeah, it came along and then just kind of all snowballed, I guess, a little bit.
So 5 years ago, you said, I'm pulling the plug from working with other people. I'm going to go ahead and venture out on my own.
Yeah.
What did that process look like?
Well, I'd wanted to for a long time, but there's a lot to go into figuring out, like, how am I going to get the accounts? Just like anyone wants to start a business. Luckily, Alexis, my wife, had a wonderful job, and we had, we don't have kids. We were able to save up quite a bit, so it was actually a pretty seamless transition. I always tell everyone that it was God sent that I was going to do it, because, like the last thing we needed to buy, I pulled out the last couple $100 out of our jar type thing, like that sort of thing. So it was what I wanted to do, what I knew that I would enjoy working for myself. Not that you can't get your personal value from working or anything, but, I didn't like relying on other people for my value or my schedule or anything like that, so it appealed to me to work for myself, and I do my best to make that prevalent in how I run my business, so I don't know, it just all kind of fell into place, and then we just kind of ran with it as best we could, learning as we were going.
Yeah. So, but did you really know much about business prior to that?
No, zero. And then about 2 years into it, I realized I knew even less than I thought I knew.
Okay.
It's pretty easy. When you're in a service company, like anything, I'm doing this, I did it this long, the math all works. It's pretty easy whenever you're by yourself. It's whenever you start growing, and then if your processes and stuff don't add up to, like, we've added this truck, that means we've got to pay attention to this and this. And then, unfortunately, those lessons are learned through fire, and it's the only way you can learn lessons. But no, I just, I liked working for myself, and I've never had a problem being self-motivated to get up and go. However, that was instilled. I started working on a farm when I was 6 and 7, in my summers. I started working full time on the farm when I was 11. cutting hay in the summertime and everything. So work has never been an option in my family, at least. And however that was instilled in me, is always there and it will always be there. But, being just a one-man operation was good, and easy and, carefree. And then as you grow, it just, your responsibilities change. And then it usually takes a massive loss somewhere, or, unfortunately, like a loss of client, or, a job didn't go well, before you learn it. It's just part of it, So, I told everyone, whenever you start making decisions or running something, I said, you'll probably get it wrong 90% of the time. I was like, and now after 5 years, I'm confident I've got it down to about 88% of the time I'm wrong. So it's just part of it, learning and figuring stuff out. But yeah, no, I didn't have any business, aside from working for my family, because my dad owned a few businesses and my grandfather built houses and had a cattle ranch. So just jumped off a cliff there.
Yeah. Was there a fear when you first got into it, or you just were like, no, this is exactly what I want to do. Here I go.
There wasn't a fear at all. Probably because I was too stupid to realize that there were some consequences that could come. I'd say the first, fear, if you will, would come at your first adversity, true adversity in business. We had a rough year in 2019, just for an example. I hate dwelling on the past or talking about it, but it was just everything kind of snowballed in the wrong direction, where we grew a bunch, and then I wasn't ready to lead 25 guys how it should be, and then went through some weather difficulties like everyone in Fort Smith did in 2019. But I don't know. I mean, I was never scared of it, just because I knew, starting your own thing and doing your own, working for yourself, you can always go back and get a job somewhere, so I never really felt that was much of a risk. I think that being scared about something that's happening is probably closer now that I've been through some of the stuff, and I haven't been through a lot, just enough to, help straighten out anything. But it's more of your ego that you're scared of dealing with in the public if you were to fail, than actually failing, because money and stuff, you can always, I know how to work, how to work, what you can do for money. That's never a problem to find. But if you start all this and go all out, and I'm going to do this, and I've got this, and then it all fails, I say, like, your ego, you're scared of what people might think, or having to be humbled publicly in front of people, more than anything. And since that's happened a few times, it's not, it's really not that big of a deal. So we're better off for it, to go through that stuff.
So you mentioned, you started off on your own 5 years ago, and then you've grown the business, and you mentioned that you had a challenging year in 2019. But I know you've got a crew today. What is that? How many folks you have working for you?
We through the winter months, which we hire up during the summer times, because that's when we're busy. We're about like 15-ish during the winter months, and we'll get up to 20 to 25 during the year. I've got most of the guys are down here in the River Valley, but I've also got a location in Northwest Arkansas. That, we've got a group of guys up there that work. So, about 25, and Alexis runs all of the administrative stuff in the office. I never claimed that I could do office work or anything like that. That's probably one of the bigger challenges too. Being outside and working, that's the easy stuff. Having to learn and sit down in an office and, bid stuff, or, get invoices right. That's the stuff that takes, a guy like me some time that's the real challenge.
Yeah.
I can figure out how to move that big rock from there to there, but sitting down and doing this it's tedious for me. But yeah, right now we're about 20-25 and looking to stay about there, and just have some sustainable growth. That's a big one. Sustainable growth. A lot of people get excited to start their own stuff, and when you grow, problems arise. And if you're not, like I was saying earlier, prepared on the front end of all that to handle all those details that need it, that's when stuff gets sideways, if you will.
Yeah.
Or you get to learn. It's like you have an opportunity to learn coming up on the horizon is what it is.
Yeah. So you learned some stuff through that. What was maybe one of the bigger lessons that you took away from that?
In my personal situation, the bigger you get, the more important the details are, because if you can, every entrepreneur or business owner, they can all do that super awesome math where they're like, oh, if I do this, And then we do it like this. That means we can make this much, type thing. But then you forget that that crew could do that if you were the one seeing everything done, making sure all the details are right, and then making sure that everything's flowing right. But then you start venturing down. Now I've got managers that run each division, and then they have crew leaders. So now you're 2 and 3 down the road. And so if there's a chink in that chain, or if there's one guy or girl that either just let something slide, or little stuff like that, just details can be missed so easily once you start stepping away from being the one with your hands in the dirt or with your hands on the computer, whatever it is with the business. So instead of to where whenever we started and we get bigger, you're like, yeah, I'll do this, and these guys will run those guys, and these guys will run those guys. And while that is good, you have to make sure that everyone, when you step away, knows the amount of attention to detail that it takes to run that, and then the amount of attention to detail that runs that. And if you're not on those little stuff, the big stuff will not turn out like you want it to. I forget who told me this originally. I think it was one of my coaches in high school. And they said, take care of your seconds, and your minutes, your hours, your days, your weeks, your months, and your years will take care of themselves. And that's couldn't be more true. I mean, no matter what you're doing, if I skip a few seconds here, a few seconds there, and I'm not saying this like I'm a master of my seconds, I don't want that to be it. But whenever you feel like something isn't working right or slipping, you can go back and realize that, I should have been working on this bid right here so that I could go over here this afternoon. And instead, I was doing something else and I didn't get that done. So I had to push that meeting, and now we're it piles up in the wrong way. And if you're not on it, then it will pile up even faster when you add 4 trucks, 5 trucks, 6 trucks. So that's my biggest takeaway from any situation we've been through. And that's the gym, the cows, and lawn and landscape. And unfortunately in cows, whenever you make mistakes, animals get seriously injured or die. And that's the worst thing they can do. So it's pretty important on the money side and the animal welfare side of it. So details is what that is.
Yeah.
But
attention to the detail.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you effectively communicate the importance of those details and raise up a crew to be able to handle that stuff for you?
Well, the number one thing, and I can speak to the 3 guys, Jordan Fisher, I'll call him Fish, Adam Oberak, and Clayton Masterson. They're my managers. They're kind of some of the original guys that came on, maybe not the first guys that came on, but the ones that stepped up and helped. Any company can't make it without proper managers or supervisors, whatever they are. So number one would be if you have people here willing, you have to teach them and treat them as best you can. I think there's something that gets lost in between employees and owners sometimes, to where I'm doing this, I'm running that. Maybe I need more money, maybe I need more time off, maybe I need this. And there's a balance between giving everything you can to someone as far as boss employee, and honestly I really am not a fan of that relationship, boss employee, because I think we're all employees of KPLUS. That's how I've always thought about it. But there's a balance between giving everything you can, but then still being responsible for your company, as far as whatever it is, cash flow, new equipment. I would love for everybody to come on and make $100,000 in everything. I mean, that would be the coolest thing ever, especially if it was a company that you built and you were able to do that. And that's my goal. I mean, maybe not specifically $100,000, but make a company, especially a lawn and landscape company, where it's not quite as popular to have career guys, career opportunities. And that's my goal. But it starts with people right below you. And those 3 guys, I have to hold them to a high standard for details to make sure. And then they have to hold their guys, to a high standard of it. And it's just overall culture. And this is stuff that I'm still working on. Like I said, I mean, that our, rough year was in 2019, and then everyone's rough year was last year. Some people made it through, some people didn't. That's a whole different conversation. But swinging the culture to caring about that stuff when we have meetings. And I'm like, if you walked past this piece of trash that I can see out of the corner of my eye, then we're not where we need to be. A piece of trash on the way into the shop means, left on the ground means that you're going to leave a back porch not blown off, or not fix that one brick and make it perfect instead of almost perfect. You know what I'm saying? So it really is. It's a daily pursuit of the details, because anybody can show up and have a perfect day. Anybody, they can, man, I nailed it. I made all my meetings. I made all my phone calls. I got these jobs, that job. But then tomorrow you take off half a day. Well, it's not consistent, consistency over time is what it is. So details every single day is what will make a company, a place, a group of friends, whatever it is, the consistency of the attention to detail is what it is. So it's just, it is, you can just never rest. And it gets annoying, from the other side, to where I'm, hey man, did you do this? Hey, did you do this? I know y'all did a great job on this job, but how about this right here could have been a little bit better, or whatever, So again, it's a balance between being overly annoying and micromanaging, which I am not a fan of, but also making sure that everyone's still straight and narrow, because they've got to make sure those guys are straight and narrow. So it's tough, but it's just ongoing and being consistent.
Yeah. So how do you provide constructive criticism in that scenario?
For me, it always makes sense to, if you're in a company that you eventually, like, everyone wants a career, everyone wants stability for their family, everyone wants opportunity for growth. And it's pretty directly, in our world, it's directly tied to, if you're efficient and detailed, then they're going to be happy. They'll pay their bill. They'll get more jobs, and we'll get more jobs done in a day because you were efficient and into detail. So more jobs done in a day for the same amount of time, the happier the customer, means that we have a bigger profit margin, which means I can pay you more. So it's a big, circle that is pretty evident, and I know it's not quite like that in all businesses. On some level it is, everywhere it goes, but I've just tried to be as honest as I can. This is what we can pay. And if we didn't have to go back to this job 3 times, if we didn't have to go back and, pick up a shovel we left, if we didn't have to go, fix this window because we weren't watching, that sort of stuff adds up. And so I've always tried to be as honest as I can, and like, hey, we had this much stuff in broken windows this year, and this is everyone's raise. So not that I hold raises or anything like that, but I would love to give everyone as much as I can. But at the same time, if you're not taking care of your end, I can't give you your end. I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between work nowadays, where a lot of people think their employer is fully responsible and owes them everything with their job. They forget that they're trading the value that they provide as an employee to the company, and then we're trading wages. So it's tough when someone comes in and they want this, want that, want this, and they don't understand that, like, I'm my own company, that I'm trading out my work and expertise for this money, and if I do it better, I can get more money. And so that's the tough thing. I say nowadays, maybe it's always been like that. I don't know. I've just seen it, but just apples to apples. You give me more with more details, more pride in your work, then we can give more money. We can grow as a company and give everyone a better opportunity.
I think that's a great perspective.
Yeah. It's just tough. I mean, like back, I say back in the day, like I was in those back in the days, it's you have corn, I've got cows, let's trade. And you gave me bad corn, I'm not going to trade with you next year, right?
Yeah.
If I gave you a bad cow, you're not going to trade with me. And that sort of accountability is a little bit lost in today's work environment.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can get a group of guys, a group of girls going in the right direction and have that kind of mentality, I mean, you're pretty strong there.
For sure.
Mm.
So how have you learned these different insights? I mean, School of Hard Knocks, do you read?
Mostly by trial and error. I do read. I tell everyone, if you want to do anything in life, start reading. I don't care what it is. Start reading. I didn't read. I always, it's kind of a joke in school that you don't want to read, but I used to read all the time. And then there was like a forced reading program at some point, and my wife will tell you I'm fairly stubborn, on the stubborn side, and we'll see if she's right about that. But I just decided I didn't want to read anymore because they were making us now, it wasn't fun. And then I didn't read really until after high school. And I don't know I think I was just thinking one day, I was like, well, kind of it's silly that I stopped learning after high school, and I went to college. I went there for a little while, but that's a different story as well. I didn't finish. But I started reading, and it directly correlates with me opening up KPLUS, and then us opening up Activate Fitness. And we've always had cows about the same time I opened up the lawn and landscape. But there are so many, we get stuck in a small town mentality like Fort Smith, or, I'm from Lavaca. We have 1,500 people. Alexis is from Chisholmville. And if you don't know where that is, it's as small as it sounds. There's like 30 people there, outside of Charleston. But it's crazy to think that the small group of people you'll run across will give you all the information you need in life. And so you get an opportunity to pick, you can pick whoever you want to, learn from. So you can, pick just for motivation, a Tony Robbins book. You and I probably will never get to sit down and talk to Tony Robbins, or sit down and get to talk to Rockefeller. So John Rockefeller's biography was one of the first ones I read. I don't know why, I saw it, clicked it, or, Marcus Aurelius, meditations, stuff like that. You'll never get to talk to them, but this is an opportunity for them to like, this is me, just read it and you have it. And so if that helped tons for me, because you get different perspectives and you start learning and all that. But the trial and error really is, because I tell everyone also, like, when all the advice in the world won't help you prevent a problem. In my opinion, advice only tells you how to react once you mess up the thing the advice was trying to tell you to not do, because all of us are stubborn in our own, right. So, you'll tell me, hey, I went through this and this is probably going to happen, but then everybody thinks they know better. And you're like, no, it'll be fine. But then you're like, dadgummit, Justin told me that. And I was like, well, since it happened, and he handled it like this, like, now I know. And then now it's in my Rolodex of mistakes to avoid, and you have that. When you feel it coming on, you're like, I remember how I felt when this went wrong. I've got to fix it. So the information you can gather from like reading podcasts, I do a lot of audiobooks. I drive a lot. And I don't have very good attention span to read. So if I can listen while I'm driving, it's good. I have to get all my reading done at 5 a.m. before the day starts, so as soon as like it starts going, I can't concentrate. But if you can get that kind of advice, that perspective from people, when it happens to you, you'll know what to do. I don't know if it'll help you avoid stuff, and that's okay. That's the other thing that I have to learn to deal with, is everybody thinks that nobody else is going through it. Now, whether it's money trouble in your business, money trouble personal, losing the client because you did something stupid, or anything like that, or even if you're going down to like fitness, I struggle with like the same 10 pounds. Everyone does. Maybe someone struggles with a bunch of weight. Maybe someone struggles putting on weight. Everybody thinks that they're the only person, but you're not the only person. And you don't necessarily have to go talk to other people that are going through it, but you just have to realize and give yourself a little bit of slack that mistakes, number one, are going to happen. Number two, have to happen for any growth. If we had a business that just killed it for 5-10 years, all we're doing is delaying whenever we just explode it one day, because we didn't, because you don't learn the lessons. And if anybody who's listening, or if they're going to listen, haven't had any mistakes just yet, I'm not saying like go make them, or like I want you to make a mistake, but some of the stuff is just impossible to learn until something valuable from you is taken from you, whether that's money or time, or you have to miss a birthday or a recite, whatever it is. When that stuff gets taken from you and it's important to you, that's when lessons are learned. So definitely the trial and error is better to learn from that sort of stuff. It's just the way less fun way to do it.
Let's circle back to products and services for just a moment. You alluded to just the importance in the details.
Mm-hmm.
How does that transition or relate specifically to the services that you offer?
Well, off the top of anyone's head, it would be, make sure that stuff is level, make sure that this is done, that's done, all that stuff is understood, that we're going to do this job and it's going to look like this after. Now, I'm not saying that it's always like that. Some stuff gets missed and we have to go work on it, but every single job should be getting better no matter what. In my opinion, the personable details are what a lot of people lack. Whether it's just saying yes ma'am, no ma'am when you're interacting, even if he or she might be up there just in your business, telling you how to do your job, being respectful. And some of these may not translate quite, but like not parking in someone's yard when you're working, maybe park down the street. It's more convenient for you to park in the yard, but it's still someone's house. You got to respect it. And so the respect that you carry is important to me. Because because if someone was working at my house, I understand we're under construction, but that doesn't mean that it's now your house to where you can do whatever you want. It's still just having an aura of respect about you. Whatever you do, like if you're done drinking a bottle, I know we're going to pick it up at the end of the day, but don't throw it in the yard. Just go put it in the truck. Little stuff like that I think are more important because this is actually one of the things that I've been working with the guys this year is getting your job done is not rewardable because that's your job, right? So if we're mowing this church and we mow, it looks great, everything's perfect, and you're like, man, I feel good about myself. I'm like, well, I'm glad you are, but that was zero. You just got it to the entry point. Now, like, what'd you do extra? Did you make sure and like, it doesn't work at a church, but like, did you like pull their trash cans in? Did you, at least get to say hi and wave, stuff like that. I think people get caught up in all the time that like, well, I showed up for the 8 hours. I did my job. Like, well, congratulations. That's what we're supposed to do. Again, back to the old days. If you just barely did your job, then you would be a little cold in the winter because you didn't chop enough wood, or you would get a little hungry because you didn't, go do whatever. And so in today's world, and I know I'm a little bit of an old soul when it comes to that, and I catch a lot of flack for it, but but it just makes sense to me that like which has been lost, that like your job is your job, and that's now you've gotten to 0. Now what can you do to make it a 10? Whether that's just go extra and go trim a limb that's bothering something like in a walkway, or I don't know. It's endless what you can do to add the value for free. It's just a little bit of effort, and you don't even have to spend extra time or anything like that. But I don't know, that part, people, I guess, would be the answer to that. Taking care of people and the relationships that you have with them, because products are products. We're going to do that. But actually, there's a truck dealership that I buy our trucks from. And when I first met him, he's like, listen, I'm a small town guy and I don't want to dodge people in the grocery store. So he goes, I make sure that what I sell them is right and what I do is right. And if I do have to dodge them in the grocery store, I did something wrong, I need to go help it out, fix it. And that's about as good of an analogy as you can get. If and again, with like the internet and stuff, all too often, like you don't have to worry about some of those people. Like, if they buy a product or something, you're never going to see them. But if you lose that, I don't want to dodge them in a grocery store type attitude, then I think it's not going to go well at some point for you. So that, I talked my way into it, but about that, don't want to have to dodge people because of the work you did.
I think that's a humbling reminder for all of us.
Yeah, it really is. Because you want to be proud of everything you do. At least I do. I'm sure everybody does at some point. And again, I'm not saying I haven't felt like I wanted to dodge people in the grocery store because of how something went, but you have to just stick in it and do what you can to make sure that it's right. And you may lose all the money on that job. That's the other thing. See, that's the other thing is if you don't talk to the people who work for the company to where they're running efficient and we can have a good amount of money, then not saying that you sacrifice service or going extra for money, but it's just plain and simple. If we don't have the extra money, we've got to get out of there and go to the next one, And so if we're not a healthy business, then it doesn't really allow us some extra time to do some of the stuff that is needed to stay healthy. And so it's all full circle that you see, like I was saying earlier, those details. I mean, if one area is off, then it hinders the other areas, not just doesn't let it happen. It's just this is tough. This is tough if there's one part that's lacking. So that's why, as me, like when growing from working on a truck all the way to this, it's just such a change. And I feel like we're just now starting at like, we've got about 1% headed in the right direction, and I'm sure 100% won't happen maybe for another 99 years. But if 1% can get better every single year, then we're at least going in the right direction.
Well, let's take a moment. You mentioned that you have, this location here in this area, and then you have one up in Northwest Arkansas. How did you make a decision to have two locations? What was your process there?
Well, Northwest Arkansas is a lot different than Fort Smith, which it's growing crazy. And we've always just kind of had some contacts up there, and we just drove. And then I mentioned him earlier, Clayton Masterson. Him and his wife, which I believe he's 2 years younger than me, and they've got 6 kids. We've got a big, beautiful family, and I think it just kind of worked out. I just told him, I said, hey, if y'all ever wanted to move up, there's an opportunity, and it just kind of worked out. And being lucky that there was a guy willing with his family to move up there is just, honestly, it's a stroke of luck. And he's my cousin, so I've grown up with him. I knew him, and I felt really comfortable, sending it up there. I mean, it's a lot of trust. That's the other thing people don't talk about is the trust you have to have for some of that stuff, because you're essentially putting your livelihood in someone else's hands as the owner, and it can go bad, but it hasn't. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's struggles like everything, but just monetarily made sense, and that our trucks aren't on the road. And if we could open one up there, that would be great. But, if I didn't have a guy like Clayton, we would still be driving up there, so it ended up just falling into place correctly. And he's in it for the long haul, wants to grow it. And so are the other guys. And so it just made sense. And then, and we're just kind of starting over up there, there's just 2 or 3 guys there, in which we still have to go help and everything up there. But it's just like restarting, a business and growing, and we don't know tons of people up there. So, it's a little bit harder to get people to work and stuff right now, but it's just, we've done it here. Let's do it there. And I've been through some stuff, so we can kind of coach and say, hey, like, if you're dealing with this, let's do this. If you're dealing with this, let's do that. So it made sense. And just physical, we don't need to be driving up there every single day and wasting time. But then it just worked out to where, Clayton and Dare were happy to move up there, and yeah. I mean, honestly, I there's so much stuff that just fell into place that I can't really explain some of the stuff, as far as like, I did this step and then this step and this step and then that happened, like there's stuff that you do that will create opportunities that you probably didn't necessarily like set out to achieve. And I think that's just one of them. I've always thought it would be cool to have one up there, but then it just all kind of fell into place. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would like to get into the cattle company here in just a moment.
Okay.
But I want to ask, just on average, how many hours a day do you work?
Well, that's a tough question to ask. This is me personally, especially, which a bunch of people probably ask it like that because, working is working in my book, swinging a shovel, working. Being attentive to the company, I open my eyes at 5 a.m. and I have a routine. I go through and I check emails and stuff. A lot of people will say, leave your phone out and all that. I'm a little opposite of that. And then as soon as I open my eyes, I'm full bore. it's just how I've always been, which Alexis isn't super excited about it because she takes some time to get ready. She's more of an evening person. But from when I wake up at 5, I start planning my day, answering emails and getting stuff together. And then at 6 a.m., I start coordinating with all our managers. And so then after that, it's just, meetings and this and that. And we normally get home at 7 or 8 at night. And I'm not saying that we're working, like I said, like I'm always on duty, if you will, but physical work is usually on the weekends for me, with the farm or some stuff, random stuff during the day. And sometimes I still jump in on jobs and help, but I think it's about enjoying the times that you're not 100% doing something for the job, because it's too easy. And this is something I've struggled with. If I wanted to, I could work 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. And we would, honestly, we'd probably have more locations, more this, more that. But there's a balance, to where I don't want to get to the end of my life and realize that I spent 20 years that I wanted to enjoy building something, and not saying that it wouldn't be worth it, but in my opinion, you still have to balance, and balance is different than everyone. Some people will fully sacrifice 10 years of their life so they can have a slower last 40 or 30 or 20, whatever it is. But actually it's just trying to make that balance work for you, whatever it may be. Means sometimes you got to answer phone calls at 8:30 at night, but that doesn't mean we weren't just at dinner, enjoying each other, and just winding down from the day. It's just about how you think about it. Some people would say, I work 16 hours a day, and all that, but it's the trade-off for being able to go and do, like last week, I was able to go, do something that I wanted to do while I still had to, work the whole time, with the phone and coordinating stuff. It was a busy part of the year, but sometimes you just have to, and that's something I haven't been very good at here in the last 4 years, that, you still have to enjoy your life through it. But to answer your question, I mean, I'm on 12 to 16 hours a day, but not sweating it like it used to be.
Well, would you mind sharing that story about what you did last week? Because I think it's a good transition into the cattle company.
My best friend Zach Stormer is from Texas. He's out from the Houston area, and then his best friend, when he grew up, they live in a place called Cranfield's Gap, Texas, which is southwest of Dallas. And they work their cows every springtime, and they do it the old style, where you're dragging them to the fire, then you mug them and you get to work them and everything. It's just a big group effort, and it's kind of old cowboy ranch style, and that's, I was born a couple hundred years too late, and I'm just like a lot of guys were, and so that appealed to me. I wanted to go, one, because they're such good friends of my friends, and two, I enjoy work, and cows are, I mean, if I had to rank them, they're my absolute favorite. And one day it'll be my main source of income, but it just takes a long time to get there, and learning the lessons from KPLUS Lawn and Landscape, growing fast is not always the answer. So I'm trying to keep that one nice and slow, and to where that'll eventually be what it is. But we went down there and we spent a few days. Really, oddly enough, it's kind of almost honoring the old tradition, if you will. You get that it's a little too much, but it kind of is. That sort of stuff is dying out. And like I said, when I'm trading work for work and laying my head on the pillow and knowing that I did what I could do that day is pretty important to me. And so we went up there and we spent a few days learning, I caught some flack because I didn't have my long sleeves and cowboy hat on, and that's important to those guys for this week. This is kind of keeping a tradition alive, showing up in the old style where neighbors help neighbors, and I think that's another thing that is severely lacking. The small communities that make up a big community, that make up the even bigger community, as the country. And so that's what I went down to do. And then we topped it off with a hailstorm at the end of the week. That was quite an experience.
I saw the front of your truck.
Yeah. It's man, it first off, everyone down there took on a whole tons of property damage that is, going to be an uphill battle for everyone. But as far as I know, all the animals made it out okay. And there was only a small group of us that got caught outside in it. But talking about doing this interview today, that puts tons of stuff into perspective when you have near death is the wrong way to describe it, but just an uncertain time, just a very uncertain time when you're sitting there it was just baseball sized hail for about 10 minutes that we were stuck in it and just kind of hunkered down. But it puts a lot of stuff in perspective. Just like, Lex, the next few days, she was like, oh, by the way, I let our dog Goose sleep in the bed and he doesn't get to sleep in bed with us. And I was like, there's a whole lot more important things, or different things you can get upset at than a dog sleeping in the bed. But, just stuff like that puts things in perspective, like making sure you're taking time for your family and like making sure you're taking time for yourself. But I loved the week. It sucked that it ended up, in that kind of way, but everyone made it out. I think I got the worst of it. So it just was one of those things where I was the last one that leaned up against the chuck wagon, which since we're doing old style, they cooked in Dutch ovens and we had a chuck wagon and everything. And, it's just one of those things, I've never been in it, nobody had been in it before. And we just did what we could. But I mean, you'll appreciate this. I told people, if you have trouble believing in God, that I'll show you a bowl, and I can show you the video later. There was a bowl that blew into a guy's lap, and he didn't know where it came from, but he put it on top of my head, and it probably saved my life. You never know. But I was covering my head with my hand, and took on a lot of damage on my hand. But then he put that pot on my head, and then it's just all dented up, and it's one of those things you just never know. And it's important to invest in your friends and the community around you. I say that, family around you, because true enough, like nothing is guaranteed. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. Next 5 minutes aren't. So just, it worked out where that happened last week to where I'm in a pretty leveled off state and thankful state that I was doing this interview this week, and then I was answering some of those questions, and I was like, this might have been a different answer last week, but this week, it's really kind of launched us in to keeping stuff in perspective,
Yeah, I saw the front of your truck, and I saw some pictures of, I'm guessing that's your back.
Yeah.
And you guys really took a beating from this hail. That was significant.
It was crazy. I don't know how else to say. It was, when we were doing it, it's just kind of staying lighthearted and trying. And actually, I've had the thought before that the business stuff helped me out in that moment. And I remember thinking that I couldn't suffer because it could get worse. And I didn't know because none of us knew when it was going to end. There was a 1% chance of rain, as a matter of fact, so we didn't know it was coming. It wasn't like we were just being irresponsible and like, we'll be fine. It was clear skies, baseball size hail all at once. And it was only a mile. It only went a mile on top of us. It wasn't even a band. It just went here, dumped on us, and then just went straight up and evaporated, or, whatever. Yeah. I don't know. I mentioned I didn't go to college. I don't know what it does after that, evaporated. But if you're going through something, it's important to remember that it will stop at some point. And if it doesn't, then you have a whole lot more bigger problems than the ones you're worrying about, And so I just remember thinking, like, stay in good spirits and it'll eventually be there. Because, if you get scared in something like that, or you're not being like a good leader through it, not that I was leading the guys there, but, everyone as a team is leading each other, encouraging. And sure, there were some words flying, ouch, and yelling and all that. But between, praying out loud and just encouraging each other, it was just a crazy experience. But I do remember that because of the years that we had, I suffered many times, to where, like, I can't do another day, can't do it again. And then you wake up and you do it again, and you wake up and you do it again, and it'll always be there. And if it's not there, then like I said, there are bigger issues at hand. Whether it's money or your ego, like I was talking about earlier, it'll all be okay. But we're just always so scared of what we don't know. But yeah, man, it was I wish the week would have ended differently, but at the same time, everyone's fine, and they're all material things that, that they have to deal with, and that, our trucks, whatever, it's fine. But when you get up from something like that and you see all your family and friends around, you have a sigh of relief. It's not a big deal after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that story. I appreciate
absolutely.
it. Yeah. And so I guess if you want to be a cowboy, it's a tough life.
Well, it's not that bad, but I guess it can happen. But it's not on the list of things to do. Is be sure you can make it through a hailstorm. But no, that was I loved going down there. I love being around it, and those cows are my favorite though. So
let's take just a couple of minutes here before we wrap up.
Yeah.
And just tell me about KPLUS Cattle Company and kind of how you maybe got that started.
Well, first, I mean, a lot of people ask me like why I have KPLUS. KPLUS is my family's cattle brand. So whenever my grandpa started with cows, he ended up purchasing a big group, and the guy's last name was Cooper with a K, and he had adjusted it, so he just added the plus, and then that became our brand. And so now I've got it and registered, and it just means a lot to me. I've always been fairly sentimental in how I treat the men that came before me. So my grandpa's one of 10 that grew up in a little town called Texola in Texas, and they didn't have anything, and then he at the end of his life had his farm, cows, and he was a successful home builder. My other grandpa on my mom's side, this is a funny story, but he signed on to play with the Cardinals straight out of high school, and the spring before he was leaving, he lost his arm in a machine accident. And so I've never known him. My mom's never known him to have, but she's passed away here in the last couple of years. But he had one arm, and so he didn't go play for the Cardinals. He went into the ministry. And so my mom grew up in Brazil. They were missionaries in Brazil. And then my dad, he was diagnosed when he was 40 with I always get it wrong, but it's a non-cancerous tumor condition. It's called sarcoidosis, and his is in his lungs, and he's battled a lot through the years, being able to work, not work, and they've made it to where it's at. So for me, it's almost like responsibility to do better for the people, for the guys that came before me, for the men that came before me. So the cows are super important to me, and the brand KPLUS is super important to me. But I honestly, we just kind of hit the ground. We got to a point where we could get some cows, and I told my grandpa, I was like, "Hey, I'm ready." And then we did it, and it's just been kind of slow go from there, just learning here and there. Like I said, we've lost cows and calves due to not negligent mistakes, but it just happens sometimes, and it's the toughest way to learn lessons whenever, something actually suffers from something, but unfortunately it's part of ranching. It's part of, cows, and I enjoy the challenge, and then I just enjoy being around them and being outside. So, yeah, it's just something I've never not owned cows or been on a place that had cows, all the way from when I was born. So it's just been drilled in me, and now I'm gonna keep it on going.
Part of who you are.
Yeah.
Part of your heritage and your history.
Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They're there.
Well, we'll wrap up. I guess maybe I'll maybe a final question, which is, you've obviously started a lot of businesses, be involved in a lot of business. We didn't even talk about the CrossFit gym, but I mean, so you've got all this different stuff going. What's your technique for finding balance?
That's a tough question, because I'm not quite sure any of us have it. I think it's probably just like I was saying earlier. You kind of have to balance is not defined one way. Balance is defined for each individual person. So 8 billion ways. It doesn't matter. Some people want to go to work and come home and have that regular 9 to 5. Some people want to have land. Some people don't want to have land. Some people want to have kids. Some people don't want to have kids. It's just, it's the single individual. I knew that I wanted to be in control of what I could control. And if you're working for someone, not that there aren't good companies, good bosses that don't do that. I knew that I wouldn't thrive in that situation. So the balance that we talk about now, where I try to take time for a trip here and there, or, to be home when I'm home, honestly, it's just come along in the last year or so. Good people around you. If we're talking about the gym specifically, Mark and Mo are wonderful. We couldn't ask for better business partners. And I couldn't ask for a better wife to support me and all my stupid stuff. If I have an idea, she'll look at me and be like, please don't say that out loud. I don't know what you're about to say, but don't say it out loud, because it's probably going to happen, So spouse, overall, I skimmed over that. Your spouse or whoever you choose to share your life with is number one. If that's wrong, everyone who is in that situation, they understand that it affects everything. So that's number one. And then the people that are around you. Mark and Mo are wonderful business partners. And we had a big group of friends that helped build the original gym, and helped coach, and they didn't get anything out of it, except our friendship, which is pretty good. I promise no, but they sacrifice long nights just to help friends, and having your community around you will help you get through whatever, if you're balanced, if you're not balanced. And with KPLUS, with the Lawn and Landscape, Fish, Adam, and Clayton, we couldn't be doing what we are without them, and we're not going to do what we're going to do without them. So in my opinion, having the right kind of support system around you, and that's not going through and saying, hey, I need you to support me here, and I need you to support me here. Being vulnerable is something that I struggle with, just in general. But if you have friends that you can be vulnerable with and talk with, and they'll support you and help, and you do the same, that's probably another thing, is reciprocating the support you get. Because again, with entrepreneurs, we're the center of the universe. Everyone is, right? And so you forget that you also have to put in. There was a lady at our church when me and Alexis got married that wrote a note and a card and I just remember it applied to every single relationship, whether it's business, just friends, business client relationship. Is she told us that in marriage, you'll get out what you put into it. So everyone thinks when you get married, or just insert when you start a business, it's full of everything, whatever, happiness, sexual gratification, support and all that, but you don't get that unless you put it in, you know what I'm saying? And so, that was Miss Margie that wrote that back in the day. But it's the truth with anything. Nothing can be one-sided. If we can tie it all the way back to, you gave me corn, I gave you a cow. That's what relationships are, give and take. And so if you're always taking, you'll never have the support system that you should have. Because you got to remember that even if I am paying you to help me build my gym, you're probably doing some extra for me. And you just have to realize that everyone is sacrificing something, even if you're paying them. There still has to be a give and take relationship. And as long as you treat the person across the table from you how you want to be treated, you're probably in the right genre, in the right area. So put in what you want out, and it'll be there. Yeah.
Thank you for your perspective.
Absolutely.
And thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I've really enjoyed this, and just hearing your stories and your perspective. I'll ask you one final question, which is, how do people learn more about KPLUS?
On Facebook, we have our regular stuff. We're still not very big enough to, advertise tons and tons, but, I post about it on that, and that's pretty much it. We've got such a good group of clients that they take care of us and refer us and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, give us a honk when you drive by and see our Tahitian blue and black. Holler at us. So
sounds good. All right.
Yeah.
Check you out on Facebook.
yeah,
Perfect.
sounds good.
Well, thanks again.
All right. Thanks, man.
I'm grateful you chose to listen. Please help us out by following, liking, or subscribing to our content at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Take care and have a blessed day.